Hello, welcome to my continuation of the writing vlog series. This is episode 9. In this I'm going to read through an older manuscript I wrote. I can't remember when I wrote it, but I think it was about 5 or 10 years ago. Okay, so I just checked and I wrote this novel back in 2019, so it's been marinating for quite some time by now, and so I think I should be able to look at it with fresh eyes and be objective and constructive when I read through and make a summary of each chapter and then make notes about what I want to change. As far as I remember, I have read through the entire story once before, but that was shortly after I finished it, and so I might not have been that objective when I wrote notes about what I want to change and what I don't want to change. So it will be interesting to read through this novel. I will just call it Project Katrina. As far as I remember, the female MC is called Katrina. And so I have a title for that project, but I will rather just call it Project Katrina because it's the name of the MC. And so as far as I remember, the story is pretty solid, and I can remember a few scenes here and there, and I can remember how the story starts and how it ends. But everything in between is a bit blurry in my memory. I can't really remember much except for a few scenes that I wrote that for some reason have stuck with me. I will start reading the novel, and then I will be back in a bit in this video and continue on when I have read the first chapter, and then I will make a short clip in this video for each chapter that I get to read through and make notes on and make a summary of. So let's go. Okay, so now I have read chapter 1. The beginning of the story is a bit cringy. I have made a note saying that the first few lines are a bit too much like a children's book. I can read them to you. I am pretty sure that I will change those lines so it will be completely different, but I wrote the first 2 lines are like this. It is a lovely day and the sun is shining. Katrina doesn't know what to do. She has all this time, but she doesn't know what to do with it. Maybe her friends can help. That's what I have written. It's a bit too direct and a bit too fairy tale like she's here's a girl and she's wondering what to do with her time, and maybe I need to add a bit more about her background before I plunge right into the story. And chapter 1 is the chapter with the inciting incident. It's quite common that the inciting incident happens in chapter 1, or at least in chapter 2, but this story has the inciting incident on the very first page. So before that we don't really get to know Katrina. It's a shame that we barely get to meet her, and then something happens that changes the entire story, and then I'm wondering, why should the reader care about what happens to her when we don't really know, or we haven't established who this girl is? How old is she? What's she doing? We know that she's going to an exam. She has an exam the next day, and she's at the cafe having ice cream, and it's a beautiful day, the sun is shining, and for some reason she thinks about death. So it's a bit more cringy than I thought. I have written the story from her POV. That's what I thought I had done the entire way through the novel, but already in chapter 1 I switch POVs, and so we get to hear another character's thoughts and his reasoning for doing what he does, and that's a bit strange. I have learned after I wrote this apparently that you shouldn't head hop. Head hopping is when you bounce around between several characters and their thoughts and feelings, and then at one point or in one moment you read the story from one character's point of view, and then the next paragraph or sentence you read from another character's point of view. And head hopping is like that, that when you switch POV in the middle of a chapter without a clear break, you can switch from chapter to chapter, or you can switch POV in the individual chapter if you make a chapter break. That's what I have learned. Some writers do head hopping anyway, and some writers are known, so well known and big names, that they don't care that they shouldn't head hop, and maybe they haven't really learned that this, maybe it's not a rule, but maybe it's a best practice or something that someone has thought would be a good idea. And I also think it has got something to do with trends. And if you're writing a novel in this day and age in 2025, then you know you shouldn't head hop, maybe. And there are rules, and once you know the rules, you can break them intentionally. But this head hopping in this chapter wasn't, I did it on purpose, of course, but I wasn't aware that I shouldn't switch POV in the middle of the chapter. But I hope I can find some way to change this, and then either find a way to keep his POV, or to change it a bit so it's from her POV, her observing him instead, and then just having his lines, his part of the dialogue, just with face expressions and things like that, and then she can reflect on how she thinks he observes her instead of going into his thoughts. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I have made a brief summary of the chapter. I won't spill the beans here. I won't go into detail with what I have written in this chapter, but I need to do some rewriting. And another thing I have done besides head hopping is to tell instead of showing. I have a few instances where I specifically write how she thinks or how she feels about something. It's okay if you go into her head and then hear, oh, I don't like him, or he seems odd. It's different than stating she thinks that he is odd. If you write it like that, it's telling, but if you kind of read her mind, then it's not she thinks he is odd, then she just thinks he is odd. There's a difference. So I think that's a clear difference between telling and showing. And I have a few other instances where I write she is feeling, or she feels wronged, and she feels something else. I can't remember exactly what I wrote, but I state how she feels, and that's also an example of telling instead of showing. And I think I should focus more on conveying her emotions and thoughts in a different way than stating them outright. She feels these, she thinks, she hears. Because it's from her POV, I don't need to state she thinks something. Then it should be clear in a different way in the prose what she's feeling without stating she feels something. Maybe her fists are clenched and she stares wide-eyed at him, and you can tell often you can tell if someone else is feeling happy or sad or disappointed or angry by looking at them. And so I should do more of the showing instead of telling. And this novel is actually quite short. It's I wrote it. It's approximately 87,500 words long, so it's on the shorter side. I typically go above and beyond 100,000 words. So if I should add things here and there, it doesn't hurt the word count. It shouldn't be long just to be long, of course, but there's room to add something if I, for example, need to expand on her background before the inciting incident happens. It doesn't need to happen on the very first page. So that's something I can work with, but I will continue and read chapter 2. Okay, so now I have read through chapter 2. There's this problem, or not problem, but in this chapter 2 I also do some telling instead of showing. In some cases telling is alright, but for the most part I want to show and not tell. If I just quickly need to move the plot forward, it's alright to tell. Like, she wakes up, gets dressed, goes to work. That's it. That's fine for telling that she does something, but it's not that important what she does and when she does it. She just does this and then moves on, and then the important parts of the story will be shown and not told. But if there's something about her thoughts and feelings, I shouldn't write she thinks that this is wrong. I shouldn't write it like that, but instead show. In the story I want to show and not tell things like her thoughts and feelings. And if it's just to move the plot forward, it's alright that it's tell. I have done that already, and I also use chapter breaks so I can skip the unimportant part, like when she's passed out. There's nothing to tell really because it's from her POV, but she's out cold and then she can't really tell the story. I think it makes sense to do it like that. Like before, I haven't done any head hopping in this chapter, but the plot is moving along, and we've already had the inciting incident, and now she's already thrown into her new life, so it's a new world already in chapter 2. The plot is moving quite fast, and there's tell in some cases where I want to show. It won't necessarily make the story longer to show instead of tell, but in most cases I think it will result in more words if you show something instead of telling it. It will require more words to describe something, to describe her appearance and her reactions, to show how she's feeling instead of just stating she's angry or she feels something. So that will be a task for future me to weed out these things. And in this project Katrina, it's not as well written as I remembered, but it also just shows, or at least I hope it shows, or it proves that I have evolved and become a better writer since I wrote this back in 2019. Things change and writers write and evolve, and the more you write, the better you become. At least if you try to become better, if you try to improve, then you will improve. If you just write and don't really look at what you've written before and try to make that better and try to learn how to write the proper way, then you won't have the necessary tools and skills to improve or to write better prose. in the first draft. I think the first draft is alright, but it's not as great as I remember. Maybe I just remembered it being good because couldn't remember all the things that I would change. I don't think I need to change bigger things like something that has to do with the plot, but instead smaller things like the way I write and the show versus tell. Tell versus show is pretty easy to fix, I hope. The few instances of head hopping will be more tricky to to change. I think that maybe I would need to take that out and just have his dialogue, but it would be a shame, I think, to not get his side of the story. There's nothing wrong in getting a second POV in the story, but I just need to find the right way to do that. And maybe I just need to make it might be weird if I make a chapter break in the middle of the chapter just to have a few lines from a different POV and then go back. Then I might as well just have it be with the rest of it as it is now. I don't know what I will do about that, but that's a problem for later. This time around I'm just focused on reading through the entire story from start to finish, and then do these. I make notes in Word. I have a separate document with notes and a few lines that sum up what happens in that chapter. I hope that I will get this ready for beta readers sometime later this year, but maybe I have my work cut out for me because I need to change more things that I thought I needed to fix. And so I will find out whether I need to do bigger edits or smaller edits. I had hoped that I would just need to fix a few things and then send it off to beta readers, but either way it's a good idea and a good thing for me to read the entire thing from front to back, because I want to re-familiarize myself with the story. I hope to get this story, Project Katrina, ready for beta readers, and once I have gotten the feedback I will implement the things I feel like and I want to improve and change, and then I will read it through one more time, and then I will proofread it, maybe get a second opinion on it, and then have someone else edit it, and I will do a proofread as well, and then I hope to publish this. Maybe this is not the right story to publish this year, hopefully. If not this, then I hope to publish something else. I hope I have at least one novel that's pretty close to being done, so I can get things moving and not just write and edit and then not really publish it. And so I hope to get a lot of work done on this novel this summer, so it will be ready for beta readers. I'll do one more chapter and then I'll get back to you and then end the video. Okay, so now I have finished reading chapter 3. Things start changing and she gets farther into her new life. The 27 chapter method has a plot point called New World, and we are already pretty far into that, I think, because the plot moves quite fast forward, and as I said earlier, the novel is only about 87,000 words, and so there's room for expanding on a few things if necessary. I think it will be necessary to put on a bit more, to elaborate on some things and to get the reader to know the female character better. Who is she? who is Katrina and why does she think what she thinks and what is her goal. A character should have a clear motivation for doing what they do, and so each character, or at least the main character, has a fear, desire, and misbelief. I'm not sure what the female character's desire is. Maybe her fear and her desire are closely connected, but she knows she can't have what she desires, and then she will have to do what she can to avoid her fear. And it's a bit problematic because the story is laid out in a way that requires a certain kind of story. It's a bit cryptic because I don't want to spoil the plot. I don't want to go too much into detail with what it's about, but I think that her desire is out of the question, and then it's about her finding a new desire, and then she has to go after that while avoiding the things she fears. And her misbelief, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe I have written it between the lines. I keep focusing on one thing that's relevant to her in this new world, but maybe it's not that important. Maybe the female character is destined to realize something about this thing that she focuses on a lot, and then she has to change the way she thinks about things and has to come to terms with her new situation and figuring out things from there. And something big has happened in her life, but instead of focusing on that, she focuses on other things, maybe small things that aren't that relevant or important, but she focuses on them. Maybe it's I can sit here and look back and say, oh, that's intentional, but maybe I should incorporate it into the plot that it's something she does subconsciously to avoid thinking about the main thing, the main issue that she's facing. And then if you have something going on in your life, it's easier or more preferable maybe to ignore that, to turn a blind eye and then do something else and focus on other things, because then you can kind of trick yourself into believing that that thing you don't want to think about isn't there. But it doesn't go away. It really does, and so she will have to face this eventually. But so far the story is going okay. I think there's room for improvement, but it was optimistic of me to think that I wouldn't need to change anything and just send it to betas right away. So once I'm done reading all of the other chapters, I need to edit it, really edit it, and then maybe proofread a bit also. But the proofread is the final step before I publish. It doesn't make much sense to proofread and then make bigger edits and then having to proofread again. The big things you need to change are relevant to fix first. The big picture edits, and then the chapter related edits, you can do them, and then the line edits or copy edit, and then proofread at the end. But I'm not there yet. I'm trying to get an overview of the story by reading through and making notes, and then summarize each chapter, and then I'll take it from there. This novel is only 22 chapters long, and that if it followed the 27 chapter method to a T, then there would be at least 27 chapters. Or maybe because this plot moves so fast, several plot points are combined into one. I think the intro and the inciting incident happen in chapter 1, as I said. you barely get to know her, or you don't really get to know her, and then the inciting incident happens. And so maybe I should expand on that so it follows this 27 chapter method more closely. I think and I hope that I have the overall structure in place, and then it's only a question of expanding on the things that are missing. I don't want to follow the 27 chapter method 100% just to say that I followed it. It should match the story and then fit whatever I write. And so these 22 chapters will take a bit of time to read through. As I said, I have read the first 3 chapters, then there are 19 chapters to go. I hope to finish this over the next few weeks. I want to have a few weeks off entirely from work and from writing, and I plan on pre-recording enough videos of gaming and writing videos, so there will be enough videos for you to watch even though I'm on holiday. I want to have a break from everything as much as possible, and then I will get back to the regular schedule afterward. But I will pre-record a few more videos, and then I will be set, I hope, for the next few weeks. So, well, that was it. In the next writing vlog, I will continue on and read the next few chapters. I probably won't go into much detail with the coming chapters, and maybe do a more overall commenting on this, as I have done in this writing vlog. As I said, I can see some trends, or not trends, I can spot some things I do and then make a note about it and then talk about it in general. One specific example I gave you was the opening lines of this novel, and I think I will rewrite those entirely. So it will be interesting to see later on when, or if, I think it will be when I have written a new intro or a new paragraph, opening paragraph for this story, how that will be compared to the one in the story at present. So, okay, that was it for this writing vlog. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will watch the next one, and it would help me a lot if you like this video and watch more of my videos, and I hope you will also subscribe to my channel if you aren't subscribed already. I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care. Thank you for watching.